Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish. They're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday Wham on Silverline Comics. I'm your co-host today, Martin, and we're with Barb Carlberg and Rob Davis. I am definitely not Wes, but hey, we are live and kicking. So how you all doing?
Good.
I'm good. I'm fine. I'm working. I'm working on Divinity 4 for all you fans out there.
Wow.
Yes, I am inking it. I've got most
Wonderful.
of the pages. So I'm inking and then I'll be coloring. So
All
just
right.
an update.
Excellent.
How many issues
So-
is that, Barb? Is this first series? Is it 4 or 6?
It's 4 for this subplot, and
Right,
then it'll be
okay.
another 4 for the next subplot.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was 4 or 6. So yeah,
Mhm.
most of the miniseries are 4.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
already promised our financial advisor that he could be the evil villain in the next 4 issues.
No, I am keeping the money. I keep the money.
He pleaded with me, I want to be in your next book. I said, do you mind if you're the villain? No, I'll do it. It's like, okay.
Whatever.
Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's cool.
That is cool.
Awesome. As long as you get that cleared, right? Because there could be issues if you choose to select somebody and stick them into a book, and there's sometimes problems with that. Although apparently historically, some Marvel guys decided to throw other guys into a book
No, I've been in
inadvertently
books
somehow.
too.
So Interesting. So we see a bunch of people in chat. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show, and we are going to have some fun tonight. We are going to do a Rob
I don't know
Davis
about that.
retrospective.
I am under the microscope tonight. Oh boy!
The venerable
So-
Rob Davis is going to be venerable.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna go back in the Wayback Machine here. it
Yes,
looks
yes.
like.
So we're going to pick Rob's brain, and part of the reason for this is because I didn't
That
have a
should
better
be fun.
topic in mind, and Rob agreed. So there we go. And this is kind of good because this also gives us an understanding of where people come from, where people are going, how they got to where they're going,
Or
and a little bit of hopefully we can throw some insights to some of you younger people, or even people who are older and maybe even been around the block a couple times. There might be always something new and interesting, or something that
4
we
or 5
can
or 6
pick up
times.
on. Yeah. So Rob. So you decided to jump into the comic book fray. Whenabouts did you get started?
Well, I started in 1984, 5 or 6, somewhere in there. It's been long enough ago that I don't remember exactly the year, but I believe it was 84 or 85. I was going to the Chicago Comic-Con, taking pages with me that I had been working on. I had been working in the retail world and got fired from one job, and I'd wanted to be in comics almost my entire life. And I finally said, to hell with it. I'm going to see if I can do it. So I started setting aside time every night after I got home from the job that I got after I got fired. And I sat down for 3 or 4 hours every night till about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, practicing drawing comic book pages.
How old were you
And
at this point?
I'm sorry.
How
How
old
old
were you?
was I?
Yeah.
Well, 84 to I was born in 54, so 30 years old, 30 some years old. So,
You were a late bloomer like I was. I was
well,
29.
I grew up in a small town in southern Missouri, way away from any big cities. Back in the 1960s is when I first, 60s and 70s is when I came of age, and at that point in time, I went to college for an art degree, hoping that would help me break in. But the more I learned about the comic book industry, the more I realized at that point in time, you had to live in or near New York City. And this little country boy from middle of nowhere, Missouri, knew that New York City would eat him alive, chew him up and spit him out. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So I took a different direction, and then got caught up in the college world in the 1970s. And like I tell people, I remember parts of the 70s. The rest of it's kind of a blur. But so I got away from it, even though it was the one thing I wanted to do in this world. I knew I couldn't do it. So that kind of beats you down mentally when you discover that the thing you want to do is something you can't do. So life goes on, and stuff happens, and bad stuff happens, good stuff happens, and finally I got fired from this one job, and I thank them to this day for firing me, because from then on I decided I wanted to get back into it. And at that point in time, we're talking about the 80s, Federal Express had come along, UPS had come along, so you could send stuff overnight from wherever you were in the country.
I tell everybody back then it was phone, fax, and FedEx.
Yep, I ended up getting a fax machine, so I could get once I got established, so that I could get scripts faxed to me to work on, because that way I could get them instantly. And this was before you could scan in pages and send them over the internet. The internet was still mostly images were not very good on the internet. All you could send was text. And when you tried to get online, you used a phone line, and it would squawk and do all kinds of noise. So you couldn't do much with the internet at that point. I mean, now you can almost instantaneously scan in an image and send it across the country.
Yep.
But once that came along, I figured, okay, I don't have to be in New York City anymore. And plus, First Comics came along and it demonstrated to everyone you didn't have to be on the East Coast at all. You could be out of Chicago. And Chicago was within a 6 or 7 hour drive of where I lived at the time in Kansas City. So we packed up. I did all the practicing. I did some tryout pages, and I took them to the Chicago Comic-Con and met some editors at different companies and different artists and editors, and they would critique my work, and I would come back home and I'd work my butt off on whatever they decided, told me that I needed to work on. Went back to the convention the next year, showed it to them again, and within 3 years, I had listened to enough and learned enough that I actually got an art director for Mayfair Games, who was doing the DC role-playing game at the time. They hired me to do some spot illustrations, and that's one of the first images that I sent to you. There are a bunch of little characters. I don't know if you see those. Yeah, those were some of the first published work of mine.
All right. Well, let's bring that up and let's take a look. Those are actually fantastic. Okay,
Yeah,
what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah, you've got some Star Trek Deep Space Nine stuff there.
Can you double click on the one that you're?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking for the. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. Yep, you just.
There we go.
That's
there.
it, right there.
All right.
That is some of my. That's my earliest professional illustration work, right there. That's an example of it. If it'll come up.
Can you embiggen it?
Embiggen it.
It's not big. I put it on full. I put it on full screen. What can I do here? Is it large now?
We're in the learning process here for our.
Yeah, I do apologize.
Hang with us.
Did that work?
No.
Nope.
Can you double click on the piece of artwork that you want to show?
Yeah, I did double click on it, but okay. So here, so here's my folder. Here's the character sheet, and that's. What are you guys seeing?
The whole thing.
Did you click it twice?
Yeah. That's as big as it gets. If I zoom in, are you guys seeing it zoomed in or no?
No, zoom in.
Nope. Yep.
That's zoomed in. But you guys aren't seeing anything happening, eh?
Nope.
Very interesting.
All we see is the thumbnails of
you
the
see
images.
Maybe I still have to press another button or something.
Yeah, it's possible. Hang with us, folks. We're figuring it out.
We do apologize. So, all right. So this
technical difficulties.
If it pulls it up in a different window, maybe you can share that different window.
Now, there may be another window that you have to share. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I have to do this. No, this. I do apologize, folks. Oops.
Yeah. Well, that's us. So
add to stream. All right. So that's that. And then if I click on my folder and I click on this, so you're not seeing that as a bigger picture.
No, because it's on a separate window. We're only seeing the one window.
You're only seeing the one window.
Yeah. I have no clue how to make that work. So.
Oh, okay. Maybe I
something happened there. That almost did it. Whatever you just did.
Okay, I think I know what I need to do here. I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to go and present. Oops. Are we still alive? Please tell me we're still alive. I do apologize. I hope I didn't. Okay, let's see here.
You're doing fine.
No, not that. And here, there we go.
There.
Oh, and he shows it to us live. There we go. Did that work?
The actual original.
All right, there we go. Look at that. So some of the techniques that he's using here, there's some blue line happening. There's some zipatone. Is that zip on the?
Yeah, it is zipatone. Yeah, and you can see, like this character right here. I played around with her to put her leg.
Right,
But
right.
because it's in Blue Line, when they print it, it won't show up.
Yep.
So, but those are some characters, I guess, for the game. I don't remember exactly what that was all about. Oh, there's something.
Still a black screen, eh?
Yep.
Mhm.
I
Well,
sincerely apologize.
I've got a few things here we can
All right, I do
look at in the
apologize.
meantime. Nope.
All right.
That's that. Then that's what I did for Mayfair Games.
All right. So you did that, and then what landed you your first comic gig?
I was talked to in Kansas City at one of the comic book shows there. They had a small comics convention there, and I met and talked to Tony Caputo, who was the editor publisher of Now Comics, and out of Chicago.
He still owes me money.
He still owes a lot of people money. I had to sue him to get money out of him. But
wow.
I for the longest time, every time I would say Tony Caputo, I'd have to go every time I said it. So because I didn't want it in my mouth. Fortunately, I've gotten over that. But yeah, he was. I always call that Now Comics was for people who wanted to get into comics in the worst way, because it was the worst way to get into comics.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, Tony was his appetite was bigger than his stomach, and he'd bite off more than he could chew, and then he'd end up not being able to pay his creators, and it finally put him out of business. He went out of business twice. In fact, he had another person come along and bankroll him for a second run, and that went south as well. I think the second time, especially, it was bad timing, because the whole industry kind of collapsed around that same time. So we all got hurt during that. It wasn't just So, but and I don't know how well he did the second time around, whether he did any better or not. But that was his biggest problem. Like I said, was he tended to bite off more than he could chew. He was trying to be a bigwig, but he didn't have a bigwig budget. So anyway, I got some work with him. I started out as a letterer for him, and I was doing. I don't have the one page here because it was a photocopy, but I did lettering for a book called Siphons, but I do have a copy of the cover of one of the issues. This isn't the first one I did, but that started out as I was doing just the lettering. And then it actually turned into, because he lost his inker, I got to do the inking as well. So see if I can.
Your career and mine sound very familiar.
Yeah, these first few pages here are colored very darkly. Yeah. But here's.
Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Yeah. That's.
So was this your first Steps comic?
This is the first published work I had.
Okay.
And this was my first comics work, was for Siphons. Now I actually worked on another book for them that didn't get published, called Valor Thunderstar and His Fireflies, and it never got published. But I actually found a couple of pages from that. Somebody else lettered this, but I inked that. And this is some of my first work. It just didn't see publication.
There we go.
Very nice. That's you inking?
That's me inking.
It's pretty good.
Very sharp. Very black.
Yes.
Well, of course, that was all indicated by the artist himself, and of course, that centerpiece, that's supposed to be outer space. So I don't know if I did splatter stars on that. You can't quite see it really well.
Yeah, you need some Kirby crackle. That's what you need.
Yeah,
right.
And here's another page from that same book.
Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So now,
Yeah.
so who would be influencing you at this time when you're doing this stuff, or were you just kind of learning by yourself? And
Well, all the artists that I admired, I got a lot of influence from them. Now, when I started studying, I would go to the bookstore and buy books on anatomy and perspective and that sort of thing. And when I sent off. I don't know. I think we've talked about this before on the podcast. That when I sent tryout stuff, and I would sometimes get stuff back from the editors. And one time, the editor actually sent me a photocopy of a book called "The 5 C's of Cinematography," which is for movies, but some of the same rules for storytelling apply to comic books as they do to movies. And that was an invaluable book. I couldn't find a printed copy of it. All I had for the longest time was the photocopies of the pages. And this was a Marvel editor, and I wish I could remember which one it was right off the top of my head. I don't remember who it was. He was a very obviously a very open editor who wanted to help people, who seemed earnest about breaking in. So he sent me that. Plus, he sent back a note and said, "Well, you got some work to do, but you're on your way, and this will help you." And so he sent me that. And like I said, it was invaluable in teaching me how to tell a story. Some of the stuff that I had missed in my self-study of comic books. Of course, a lot of what I had been studying was regular art, for anatomy and perspective and that sort of thing. But there's a certain style to storytelling. There's a certain, I call it a grammar in storytelling that you need to learn. It's a visual grammar, but it's a grammar nonetheless. So learning that, once I got that book and I'm going, oh, this is what I need to do.
What was the name of the
I made
book?
a lot more progress at that point.
What was the name of the book?
The 5 C's of Cinematography. I think it is available now on Amazon, maybe as a used book, because I looked it up not too long ago to see about
I'm sure
maybe
you could
getting
also
a
find it
copy
on
of it.
eBay.
Yeah, might be able to find it on eBay, but it's the 5 C's of Cinematography, and it goes through like the 180-degree rule that I think we've talked about here before. That mentioned that there. It was talking about where to place the camera, and one of the rules is that when in a movie, if somebody leaves going this direction, when they come back, you want them coming back in from the other direction. Like I use it when I'm talking to people at conventions about, okay, Spider-Man puts on his costume in his apartment, jumps out the window and swings out this way. At the end of the story, when he comes back, you want him coming back in. It's from the opposite direction, just to keep the story, just to keep the story consistent and make you understand where you are. You want clarity of where the characters are in the scene, and that knowing those rules, the 5 C's, helps you do that. And I wish I could name off all the C's, but I can't. I haven't read that book in so long, and it's all ingrained in me now. I do it without even thinking.
All right. Well, I'm gonna see if I can get this.
Yay!
Did that work?
Yes.
There it is.
There we go.
This is the very first page of that's my lettering and my inking. And yeah, please don't examine the lettering too closely because it's really not very good.
Well, but that's okay. But
it's passable. You can read it, and it's passable. But it's
the thing that's cool here is that you get to see all the dirt, right?
Yeah, of course that's not all. Some of the pencil lines didn't get erased completely underneath there. Yeah.
So what happens when that goes to print? Does that still show up in the print?
Sometimes it does. Yeah, I wish I had a copy of that book to dig out and see if it does. But they may also be able to boost the contrast and pull that out of there.
Now, as an aside, we are reproducing a lot of old black and whites like this for Silverline right now, and coloring them. But before they can be colored, we have to scan in the old pages like this. And then our lovely editorial assistant, otherwise known as my husband, cleans them up for us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's his job.
And
He
that's
cleans the
scanning
pages.
them from the actual books
Yes.
rather than from.
Yes.
This is
So
a
that would
photocopy. This
have
is a photocopy of original artwork here from before I
they're
sent it
not
off to
all they're not
Yeah.
all from original artwork. Some of them are photocopies like this. So he would spend
Yeah.
hours cleaning this page.
Yeah,
and
so
all
he'd have to do quite a bit of work on
Yeah,
some of
what
that
we
stuff,
call
especially in the
dirt.
word balloons. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So as a one of your early works, I would say that you're fairly accomplished with the inks here. The hairs are fantastic.
It's all
Absolutely
brush.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's all brush work with
Yeah.
a little bit of pen work in the background
Yeah.
there on the straight lines and stuff. But yeah, and this artist kind of drove me crazy. Look how long the legs are on these, especially on the women.
Oh,
7
okay.
heads
So,
tall.
okay.
That's
So you, okay. So
ridiculously
you inked
long.
and lettered this. This was a different artist that
Yeah, I
penciled
didn't
this.
draw it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not
Okay.
my art. This is not my pencil work. I was
Okay.
the inker only on this.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I've had a lot of people compliment me on how I render hair.
Yeah,
So,
it was
yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. I've tried to do that myself, and I can never match that. So my approach always ends up becoming excessively simple. So that's wonderful. All right. So if we
Jesus.
were to follow up,
Pretty.
this page, which page would you like to go to next, there, Rob?
I would have to spell. I mean, we did that, and this is from Dai Kamikaze, which is the other
Okay.
book that I was the penciler and letterer on.
Kamikaze. Here we
Dai
go.
Kamikaze. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I scanned these in for you.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's another person inking, somebody else inking, but that's my lettering and penciling work.
All right.
Yeah,
Very nice.
that's about halfway through the series. I got better and better as we went along. Some of the early stuff, there's too much empty space in the panels. But this is looking pretty good here by this point. And like that one spaceship popping out of the panel there.
Yeah.
Make it come toward you. Yeah. So and the storytelling's not half bad. The rendering is a little, I've gotten better since then. At least I hope I have.
Yep. Well, I
Yeah.
can start seeing the roots of where you're coming from in your face here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's
The
very
spaceship
cool.
is very Star Wars.
Yep.
All right, I got the first one in Star Wars.
There we go.
Well, that's all right. We'll get another one in there a little bit because
Yeah.
of course of some of the later books that I worked on. But yeah, that's
All right.
and that was a little later. That I did 12 issues of that, and that's the one that
Wow.
Tony owed me money on. Was
Okay.
this book here?
Oh wow. Okay. So now what kind of timelines were you looking at when you were given these books? Like, so you got the book, you're penciling it, and so your timeline. How many pages was a book, and how long did it take you to put the book
I
out?
believe there's 21 pages, 21 to 22 pages. And the first issue we got, and a friend of mine, we were on issue 2 or 3 is when I took it over, because the original creative team had told Tony to go jump in the lake. And so we jumped on it. He needed, the whole thing about it was that in order to get the least expensive printing that he could, he had to gang together 4 different books. He had to have 4 books
Oh right.
to run
Yeah.
on the press.
Right.
This is before,
Yeah.
this is back in the web press days.
Yep.
And he had to have 4 books to gang together to get enough printed, to get the cheaper rate. So when these guys flaked on him, well, I wouldn't say flaked, they abandoned the story. They didn't want to, but Tony wasn't paying them, so they left. But anyway, I took it over. We had like 2 weeks to do a 21-page story.
Wow.
And I brought
so you
a
just
friend of
hammered that
mine.
out.
Yeah, it was pretty. And it looks it. But we nailed it. We banged it out. A friend of mine was writing it because I pulled him into, and he wanted to be a writer in comics. And I said, well, here's your opportunity. And Tony and he got together and they talked about the book, and it was a giant robot book. Those were big back in those days. Like I'm not sure what they're called today. There's but it's like Transformers. That's giant robots from Japan, that sort of stuff. And that's what Dai Kamikaze was.
You mean like
And,
Pacific Rim type thing?
I'm sorry?
Like a Pacific Rim type thing?
Probably. I don't know much about Pacific Rim.
Right.
Never seen it. Everybody goes, "You haven't seen it?" No,
You
haven't
haven't
something
seen
like
it?
something like
Nope.
Gundam or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Gundam. That's the word I was looking for. That's the modern take on that sort of thing, I think.
Or Tiger X, which is the
Yeah,
first
and they were
thing
trying
ever
to do
worked on.
that. And to my mind, I was actually the wrong artist for this. Somebody that knew anime and that kind of style would have been much better on that book than I was. I was more steeped in Star Trek and Star Wars. And later on, I talked to the creators of the book, and they complained that you guys turned it into Star Trek. Well, yeah, that's because we didn't care much for the. So we took it in a different direction from you guys. So yeah, they were not happy about it, but it was what it was, and it gave me an opportunity to beat deadlines for 12 months. We got, and we did. I think there was one fill-in issue because I got so far behind. It gave me a chance to get caught up. I was just I was working like a madman to try and keep the book on time, and I knew it was my artwork was suffering for it. So they brought in another artist who did a fill-in issue, and it was to be honest, I think that fill-in issue was the best issue of the run. Because the story was really good, and the art that this fellow brought to it was a professional level. And he did a good job for just getting thrown on at the last minute, kind of like I did. So, but that was the first work I did. But at that point, because I was owed a bunch of money, I jumped ship.
Yeah,
and then I shortly after that I went to a comic book. I'd been to that. I believe it was the same comic book convention where I met Tony Caputo. Then I ran into R.A. Jones, and R.A. Jones was, of course, working for Eternity Comics at that point. He was writing reviews in a magazine called Amazing Heroes, and then he got into the black and white comic books for what eventually became Malibu. It was Eternity, and it had Adventure Comics, I think, was another
I heard that
line that they had.
So is this when you start getting into Scimitar?
That's when Scimitar came about. The first two, and the first two issues of that book were drawn by another artist, and he didn't follow the scripts that R.A. wrote at all. The book was not selling very well. So they said, well, we're going to do two more. We're going to make it into a 4-issue miniseries, and you can do issues 3 and 4 to help us finish it off, which is what I did. And this is the very first page of the first issue that I drew,
which is issue number 3.
Issue number 3.
Oh, that's nice.
And they even said, join in welcoming dynamic new penciler Rob Davis. And immediately sales jumped on the book, which is kind of strange. I don't know exactly how that worked, but apparently they discovered, well, because it usually takes 3 months for you to get sales numbers on a book. But apparently the numbers of books that were selling in the shop jumped, and the retailers got back to them and said, hey, you need to continue doing this book. It's selling. So what they did was they ended that first 4 issues. And then they decided they were going to do it as a series of mini-series, 4 issues each, kind of like what Silverline's doing with its stuff right now. And after each 4 issues, they would collect it into a graphic novel size book. So we had, and I worked through 5 iterations of that, 5 mini-series. But yeah, that's.
So there's the Telltale Rob Davis stuff starting to show up here. So there's the Telltale face, and then we got the nice open anatomy that's nice and clear, very clean cut, very very crisp.
Minimalist. I call it minimalist because I don't put a lot of you put a lot of scratchy lines and stuff starting in the 90s, and I never liked that. I liked everything really crisp and clean without a
Brent.
lot of extraneous lines. Hey, Brent.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, so there's gonna be a book later that I really want to touch on because there's some magic in that book that but we'll get there in a bit.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
not sure
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you're talking about there.
Well,
But okay.
I will harp on it for a little while because I think that you hit something on that book and it goes out of the park. So
Okay.
we will
All
when we
right.
get there we'll praise it accordingly.
But yeah, so I did 5 miniseries of that, and then sales were still good, but they had dropped a little bit. So again, this was an opportunity to move on to something else. And I don't know
Now,
if there's at least one more page there,
yeah.
with some dynamic work with the secondary character in that book. His name was Gaetano. He was kind of her sidekick. He
Would
was
that be this one here?
No, that's May's agency. That's later.
Oh, that's
a little
later.
later.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but there's
okay.
no. You're not too far off. That came a little later.
Okay. Let's see here.
But it's one with a demon coming up over a motorcycle. You can find that one.
Okay.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's also from Scimitar.
Yeah. Okay, I know which one you're talking about. I just gotta see what I named it here.
How you named it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the Oh Hi Mark page, is it? No, that's something else completely. All right,
Yeah, that's another page from Siphons.
Okay, let me see if I can find it here.
Inking work on that book.
There's
demon. There's those really long legs again.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can find that.
Barbie legs.
Yeah.
Oh, dragon.
Yeah, I tried to shorten them, and the artist got mad at me. He didn't care for my inks at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he really didn't. So I've been kind of gun shy of inking anybody else's work ever since.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I got kind of burned on that because the guy was he was actually kind of nasty about it.
Oh wow,
so,
that's unfortunate.
But, no, it is what it is. He didn't care for my inks, and he let me know.
Yeah, I can't see that page, unfortunately, there, Rob. Oh, wait. Is this it? Let me see. Oh, yeah, okay. I got it. And I called it Zipatone. Here we go.
Because there's supposed to be some Zipatone on the page.
Here we go. Where's the Zipatone? Zipatone. Here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, you get yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's an action sequence from that. And I didn't ink this. Another artist inked it.
So,
and
I mean, it does happen if you just don't gel with somebody, and
and he just didn't care for it. I tried to change a few things, and he really didn't like that. So, and I understand that, but it's also why I am not overly picky about an inker of mine. If they do an X, if they go above and beyond, I praise the crap out of them. But if it at least is readable, it matters not to me. And this was pretty good. If I were inking it, I would have put some heavier lines on some of these characters. But he did a passable job. I think that's James Baldwin. I think was the guy doing it then, and he the dynamism comes through at least, which is what I liked about what he did, and using the Zipatone. I mean, I didn't indicate any of that. He decided where to put those. So I thought he did a very good job on it. Like I said, I would have done it a little differently, but I wasn't inking it. So
yeah. All right. So then after this, where did you go?
And
what year are we talking?
This is probably 89. I did that at Scimitar and started in 88, but it didn't get published till 89. 90, maybe 91.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then I started sending out stuff trying to get work on the Star Trek books at DC, and there should be some. I put together. Yeah, I've got here. I don't know if I scanned those in. That's later.
Yep.
That's much later.
This is later
But I
here.
did. Yeah, that's much later. But this is some of the. This is a page of Captain America that I didn't send off to. I think I sent it to Marvel.
Oh, yep.
Captain America's origin.
All right.
It's still in pencil stages, and you can see that that's.
Here.
I can see that that's my early style. Yeah, there it is. That's some of it. Yeah.
It's pretty.
Very scimitar looking. Yes, that's probably about that. Yeah, late.
You misspelled bugle.
Yeah.
Well, no, that is how you spell bubble.
Buggle. Buggle.
Bugle.
The Daily Bugle. Yeah, it's LE, isn't it?
Oh, Brent.
So this was in the early 90s then that you sent this in.
Yes.
80, that'd be 90, 91, somewhere in there. Yeah, that's.
Is this Stan Lee?
No, it's
No.
supposed to be. Yeah, it's supposed to be the scientist that gave
Right.
Steve Rogers which
But
is Einstein. Reinstein, I think, is what they call him in the comic. So yeah.
Did you use some human reference for that?
No, I just created him out of.
You
out
just
of my
made him
head.
up. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it feels like he's referenced from something, but okay.
No,
Oh, he's
it's
nice and
just-
skinny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, of
Really
course, I
skinny.
bulk him up in the next page. So yeah.
Nice little twig limbs.
Yeah.
Yep.
A real twink.
Twink.
All right.
Oh yeah, this is definitely from the scimitar era, because I've got on the back of one of these pages is some sketch work that I can't show
Hmm.
to an audience of youngsters
Why I just said
that
twink.
from scimitar. So yeah, but it's on the back of one of these pages. This is the page with Captain America's after he's taken the serum and all, and he's turned into Captain America. But I used the back to do some sketch work for that other book.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very nice.
So David Reyes just said, "Great work there, Rob.
Thank you.
Great
We're
stuff."
talking about
Yeah.
we're talking about a long time ago, and I hope I've gotten better since then.
Yeah. Where would you like to jump to next?
Then you could probably go to the quantum leap stuff. You know which ones those are? There's a couple of those in there. Because that's what I was. Yeah.
Quantum Leap. Is that Star Trek or?
No, it's a science fiction show from the 1980s and
Put up by
90s.
innovation.
Yeah, it was put out by Innovation.
Okay.
There, that's it. That's from the first issue that I worked on for Quantum Leap. Now that's but the anybody who knows Quantum Leap knows that the character on the left there, he's a hologram, and so he can walk through objects. So the story called for him to walk back and forth. He's inside a cell in a prison, and he's walking back and forth behind this other prisoner, walking through his bed. So, and I think that the writer called for it to be laid out that way. I don't know that I would have chosen to do it quite that way, but it just shows him walking back and forth.
But you captured that. But you did that exceptionally well.
Yeah, you actually caught the actor really well too, Dean Stockwell.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Bakula.
So going back,
that was the whole point of this, was to learn to show that I could do likenesses of characters. And this page here, you'll note there's pencil shading in the background.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Campiti, who was the publisher at Innovation, he wanted us to try doing that, to do some shading in the background, because at that point they would scan the pages in, and then they would apply the lettering would go on later on, like an overlay, a clear overlay. And he wanted us to try doing that. So I drew this all with shaded pencil, and somebody else came in and did those darker lines around it. They inked it in around, and it didn't work the way I expected it to. The inker didn't do a bad job, but I didn't give him much to work with because I
Right.
expected it to be all pencil.
Hmm.
So the next page is from the next issue. This was issue 2, and I also did issue 5, and so there's another page of Sam and Al from Quantum Leap. That's it right there, and you can see that the likenesses are better, the shading and the inking works a little bit better. But that's because I did it on this, so I could make it work together.
Yeah, this
But
is
yeah,
actually really. This is really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was,
great faces.
yeah, I was trying to pull out all the stops on getting the likenesses right. So
Yeah,
working
you
from
did.
from photo reference, but that
Yeah.
was to prove that I could do a book like Star Trek, because that's
You
what
were
I wanted
really
to do.
pushing for the Star Trek stuff, weren't you?
I was at
You
that
were
point,
hungry
'cause
for Star Trek.
Well, I was. There's two things there's 2 things on my bucket list at that point. One of them was to be on a regular comic book. I'd already done that with Scimitar, but I also wanted to do something with Star Trek. So that was on my bucket list. That was one of the things I wanted to do.
What?
So
You didn't want to
this
be
was
on
a stepping stone
James
to that.
Bond?
I don't think anybody was doing a James Bond.
I just needed to get that in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I should have realized that's what you were doing. So, but yeah,
These are great faces. Like this panel here this is fantastic. This middle panel.
yeah,
That's-
it heavily
that's-
referenced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
don't
good
know.
likenesses. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the point. That was the whole point of this, was to get those likenesses that show that I could do that.
Did you have a little bit of a Will Eisner influence?
Not consciously, but I'd seen some Will Eisner stuff at this
Yeah,
point.
because
so
the
perhaps.
your hands kind of remind me a little bit of his approach.
Mm.
So, at least in this middle panel. Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of that actually came from Bern Hogarth.
Okay, yeah.
I studied
All right.
his
Yes.
dynamic anatomy books. to kind of help
I
with anatomy
tried to
properly.
read those books and it didn't.
Some
didn't
people
click.
have a real hard time with them. I actually met the guy.
Yeah.
I met Bern Hogarth at a comic book convention, and he was a very, very confident.
Hmm. Yeah,
I have his book over here. Yeah.
I understood it. I understood what he was getting at, but and maybe some of
Yeah.
it made it seeped into what I was doing. But yeah, it was a very.
Yeah, I especially got a lot of good.
I bought all his books.
Yeah, I've got all his books. I've got the one with that talks about how to do folds in clothing. You can see some of that is working well on this page here, whether the
Yeah.
folds in the clothing with the arms and
Mhm.
such. Yeah, that one panel on the left I could have worked on a little bit more though.
This one here.
Here's the thing. I look at my stuff and I go, oh, I wish I could go back and fix that, but you know,
Right.
there's stuff I see that probably everybody else goes, hey, it looks fine.
Yeah,
No, I would like to change it. And as I always tell people, what's in here, what's in my head, never makes it onto the page.
Yeah.
This is short of what's in my imagination.
Right.
But it's the best I could do between getting it from the brain to the end of the fingers and onto the page.
Okay.
But
That's why I don't pencil.
it's frustrating, isn't it, Mark? When you
I would never get anything done.
yeah,
I can ink because I'm
work it to
interpreting somebody who's already done the work.
Right.
But
Yeah.
when I pencil, I spend more time erasing than I do penciling. So, because that's not what I
Yeah.
want. It's not what I
and
meant.
that's the trick. That's the trick to being a penciler, is learning when to stop.
Yeah, I
When
can't
it's
do
good enough. Stop when it's
Yeah.
good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect is the enemy of getting it done.
Yeah. The worst is when you lay down a fantastic line and then you erase it and then you can't get it back.
Yes.
Well, and
That's the worst.
I've had that happen. I work thumbnails and then work and then take those and use those as my reference to lay the pages out on the bigger work. I used to work on 8.5 by 11 sheets. Each 8.5 by 11 sheet was a page of the comic book. Now I've gotten it down to where my thumbnails are only about, and inch across and 2 inches tall. So it helps me concentrate on the storytelling on each page and where to spot blacks and make it flow better when it's really tiny like that. And I learned that from Steve Rude was at a comic book convention that I was at one time, and he was selling some of his thumbnails, and they were even tinier. They were just very, very tiny.
Wow.
Like that.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. But you could see everything in there. All the darks were spotted properly, and the storytelling was all there. And I'm going, okay, I get what he's doing here. And so I started shrinking mine down. Plus, I used less paper.
Yeah. All right, where would you like to go next?
Well, let's see. After that, then I think is probably about that same era is the Maze Agency pages, which is that other innovation page you had up earlier.
This one here, Senor Lobo.
Yes, Senor Lobo, and this is an example of the type of paper that innovation was giving to its artists. The inks didn't lay down very well on it, and I don't know what kind of ink that this inker was using, but it didn't lay down really well. So I think he was struggling with getting the ink to lay down properly. He did a pretty good job with it, but there's as you scroll down, especially that black. See how the black is not totally black.
Yeah,
there's some gray areas in it there. I think that's an example of the paper. See, it just doesn't absorb the ink, and so when you erase, a lot of the ink will come up.
Yeah,
So,
there was a time when there was the blue line papers. They weren't holding up at all.
Yeah, and I think he got these from them. But I at that point in time, I actually preferred Strathmore 400 2-ply Bristol, which was and I like the vellum because it pulls in your pencil lines really well. The letterers hate it because if you're not careful when you start lettering it, your letters will fuzz because it's got some texture to it, and the lettering won't. But this was great for lettering. This particular paper, you can see that's nice and crisp and black, but when you're laying down the inks, and if you're not using something back in that day, Black Magic was the best ink for laying down solid blacks. And I don't think he was using Black Magic here. I think he was using something else. Although knowing that paper, it didn't hold ink really well. So, and you'll see, you just had that guy in the background there in the right hand panel. That's me.
with the beard.
Rob,
that's me. I had a full beard at that time.
I was going to ask if it was John Byrne, but
no, that's me.
That's you. All right, yeah.
And I had it, and in this middle panel here, the guy over the senior's shoulder. That's a friend of mine. His name's Steve Miller. So I would insert real people into these sometimes.
There you go. Yeah, that makes it fun.
Yeah, and it made it fun for my friends and fans.
Very George Perez of you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do that.
All right. So this was Maze Agency. I think I ended up getting some back issues of that floating around in my long boxes at one point. So
I did. I think I did one issue of that, and I actually worked with Mike Barr on a Star Trek Deep Space Nine issue at about that same time. But at this point, I was still trying to get broken in at Star Trek at DC. So I think I got them to let me do one issue of Star Trek The Next Generation. And I don't think we have an example of that. But that I did. So I did Star Trek The Next Generation, and then Malibu acquired the rights to Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And of course, I had contacts back at Malibu because I just finished doing the Scimitar stuff. So this is an example of some of that work. And this is that's not the earlier work that I did. This is from Hearts and Minds, which is the first miniseries that I did for them. And at this point is where was really struggling with likenesses, and I come up with a technique that I still use to this day to get likenesses right, right on. And that's, I would take photographs of, and back then I took photographs of the TV screen. I had darkroom equipment, and I would take photographs of the screen, and I also had an overhead projector that I put on over my light table, and I would take photographs of the characters from the TV screen, and then blow them up or shrink them down, and project them onto the page.
Wow.
To get the likenesses tight.
That's a lot of work.
It was, and I would lay out the page first. I do my thumbnails first and figure out where I was going to put the people, and then I would try to find
faces that match,
a face that would match that. And sometimes I would have to change the angle of it a little bit or something, but I could usually find something somewhere. I had them all on tape, so I could even slow the tape down or stop it to take photographs. So, but this is a product of some of that upper left-hand corner one. That's definitely from one of those.
Yeah,
I could see that.
So now I'm going to surprise you here.
Yeah, you show a color version of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what it looked like when it was colored.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I was going to just say something that was interesting because I looked at some of this. I went scrounging in the bowels of the internet, and I found these, and I was flipping through them. And how do I put this? You capture the show, like it feels like the show. If that
was my aim, it worked.
So yeah. So it's like, yep, that's Deep Space Nine. So that's great. Very, very. And then this was the cover. You did the cover as well.
Yeah, I did do this cover, and that was that's not a bad rendering of Cisco, but I got better at that later on because I think I did that cover before I started using that particular technique. But so I did them a little better at that point. And the interesting thing about this cover, they also did a hologram cover of this. And see those two,
wow.
the Kardashian on the right and the Klingon on the left, their hands, and if you would move the cover back and forth, and they would pound their hands on the desk.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
So there was it was pretty cool.
Like a little bit of an animation.
Yeah. So
very cool.
If you moved the cover and the light hit it just right, they were pounding their hands on the desk.
Yeah. So all right.
But
so
yeah, now you see those spaceships in the background. Now the Cardassian ones in the back, those are from photos that I found. But those Klingon ships in the foreground, I actually built a model of that ship.
Oh my God!
I built the model.
So you built a model for reference.
I've got it on. I still got it on my shelf up here.
Wow!
So, I bought it for reference. Yeah,
well, that is dedication.
And Deep Space Nine, the space station, I built a model of it, and the Runabout, which was the little ships that they used from Deep Space Nine, I built a model of that. So I had all the reference that I needed. They was always saying, "How do you get these spaceships so good?" And I'm going, because I have the actual model of the ship, and I can hold it in my hand and draw it, so I can put it at any angle I need. But I did not have one of the Kardashian ship. I don't think they had a model at that time. They do now, and I've actually got an unassembled one over in my stack of models to build at some point in the future. I don't know if I'll ever draw the book again, but it'd be kind of cool to have that on the shelf along with the others.
So at this time, when you were doing this book, are we now in the computer age, or are you still sending pages into DC?
Still sending them to DC and Malibu. Doing them on Bristol board.
And did they ever have requests for changes or fixes, and they would send the pages back, or how would that work?
I never got any back, but I would.
Oh wow!
But one of the reasons that I started doing what I did for the likenesses is that I would get the pages back after they printed the book, and I would see that they had pasted over some of the likenesses, some of the faces somebody had done a tighter drawing of it and then pasted it over what I drew. So I'm going, okay, well, I'm going to start. That's when I started using that technique so that I could get it even more into line. And there's a funny story about that, because later on I did a book at DC for the Star Trek book where Captain Kirk from the movie era meets Trelane. And I did that book. And when I got the pages back, every single William Shatner Captain Kirk face had a new one pasted over. This is a later one. I did a series of 3 issues where the Star Trek crew goes back in time to the Klingon world, and they meet people from the ancient history of the Klingon world, and here is their analog to Leonardo da Vinci. He's got the airplane and he's got a telescope and he's studying the stars. They've gone back in time and they've disguised themselves as Klingons. I think they're trying to correct the timeline for whatever reason. I don't remember the whole story of it, but I did 3 fill-in issues because the regular artist had been called off to do something else. I don't remember what the deal was, but he was drawing something else at the time, and I was only supposed to do 1 issue, and then I ended up doing 3.
Did you pencil and ink this,
okay
or
with me. I'm sorry?
Did you pencil and ink this, or did you just pencil?
I just penciled it.
Okay.
Arnie Starr inked it.
Okay. All right.
One of the better inkers that worked over me, I thought. He brought a nice heaviness and thickness to the lines that some of my other inkers didn't bring.
Why did they paste the faces over all of the Captain Kirk
Okay.
faces?
I was going to get to that. So I was curious. So I peeled one of them up, and what it was is, and I don't know if this is what it was or not. Arnie Starr told me later it was just, he didn't really do much of it. They told him to put new faces on, so he just did new ones. But it looked like to me that Shatner's hairline had been pulled down a little bit on his head. So I thought maybe that was the reason why. I can't say that was it for sure, but it sure makes for a good story telling it that way. But that's what it looked like, because all the hairlines were a lot lower in those. So, and Shatner was tough to capture because he's got kind of an everyman face.
Very generic.
Yes.
Very generic face. So he was hard to capture. And so, but by the end of this 3-issue run, I could draw him without much reference. I learned what places on his face to get the proportions proper.
Mm-hmm. All right, where would you like to follow up next?
Okay, let's see. We showed Deep Space Nine. We showed this. I'm trying to think what's next. We did Quantum Leap. Oh, have you got the Pirates of Darkwater?
There we go.
Pop out, guys. I'm sorry. I promised myself I would bug out at 9 o'clock. So I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah. And
all right. Pirates of Darkwater. Yeah. And this is actually the book that I wanted to talk about.
Really?
Because this is, yes, because I think
Pirates of Darkwater.
You brought something to the table here. Show. So I'm not sure what you did, but you brought something to the table here that's it's got some serious kick.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little interesting fact about this book and about the editor. So So this is the page you were talking about. I wondered if you weren't going to talk about something about this the way you kind of hinted around that it had something to do with the Pirates of Darkwater. So,
no.
So,
okay,
yeah. What are your thoughts on this? So,
so you mentioned earlier that something to the effect of your clean lines, right? And your clean line approach, and the other issues of this book were done by a different artist, and they capture they capture the essence of the show, but it was a lot more scribbly. If there was a lot more hatching and stuff, and like this, when I saw this from your work, it just popped off the page. Like it had a punch. And I think it boils down to the simplicity, the clarity, and just the boldness of it. And it just really, really.
Yeah, there's the minimalist. You know, I was doing a cartoon. I was doing a cartoon show. When you're doing cartoon characters, you've got to keep a simple line to it. I don't remember who inked this, but this is some incredible inking work he did here. I love what he did to my pencils.
His name was Mishpinsky or something. Mike Mishpinsky. Some odd.
I don't know, but he brought. It's a lot of brushwork. It looks like to me, and it's very crisp and clean.
Yes.
And he brought something to my pencils.
So you actually had 2 inkers. So you did 3 issues of this, from what I saw.
Yeah.
Your first one was a different inker, and then the last 2 books were. So the first book you had 1 inker, and then the last 2 books you had a different inker, and your second inker, he just knocks it out of the park. Like he took your stuff and just made it like unbelievable. Here it is in color.
Yeah,
so
unfortunately, I think
holds together so well.
Yeah, I think the color kind of flattens it. To be
I
honest.
do too.
It does
I
a little bit.
I think the colorist could have done a little better job here, but we're talking early '90s, so yeah, I think the coloring flattens it a little. But here's the kicker on this. The editor. Yeah, that's my first cover from 7. Yeah, I think the colorist did okay on the cover here, and. Yeah, that's the second one. And then the third one was done by a very famous artist. Did you get a copy of that one? No. Okay.
I don't think I pulled the third cover. No.
Yeah.
But but I pulled this up because I wanted to contrast the inkers here. Let's see. Not this one. Is it not there? Let's see here. Here we go. So this was your first inker.
Kind of scratchy.
And this is your second inker. There's just your second inker just had a much more lively line.
Yeah.
And approach. So
yeah.
But that said, your style and approach still carries through in both with both inkers, and it. Let's just say when I saw this, Rob, it had some serious punch, and it just.
Yeah, and here's the irony.
This to me was your pinnacle. I thought this was a pinnacle work.
And here's the irony. I learned later from someone I knew who actually helped me get this job, who worked in the offices at Marvel. He said that the editor told him that he didn't care for my pencils. He thought they were too quiet.
Too quiet. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm on the complete opposite side of the page, and I'm saying
that's why when you said that, I just shook my head because that's what the editor said. It was, He said
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum.
My pencils were too quiet.
And I think I know the reason why he said that is because the first 6 issues of the book, there's a lot of noise in the pencils and in the inks. There's lots of scratchiness going on. There's lots of like flair, and so I mean they still captured the essence of the book, but this just crystallizes everything here. This is kind of
I was trying to recreate the
direction
cartoon.
of
I had model sheets. I had model sheets for the character, these characters were designed by Gil Kane. So I had photocopies of Gil Kane artwork. He designed the major characters in this. Yeah,
Yep.
Vic says too quiet. Does he mean too clear? Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's it, because there's not a lot of busyness in that. It's
Sorry, I don't
great,
mean to keep having
clear,
that pop up.
clear storytelling is all I'm trying to do. But that's my only Marvel work. But
yeah. So yeah, no, I would love to see more stuff like this. This floats my boat. So it's very to me it's very Carl Barks and very what's his name?
That's what
the guy who did Scrooge McDuck for years.
That's the vibe I was going for. So it's a cartoon show. We want it to look like the cartoon show, I thought. But the other artists, the characters didn't look like the characters on the show at all. The likenesses were off, but it was very and you're right, it was very busy. There was a lot of scratchy noise in it. But I wonder if this inker that was on the first issue was on the previous penciler. I don't know. That may be what's going on here. And
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But that you're right. That second inker really he came along and knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
took it to the next level for me.
Yep.
But
absolutely.
I mean, that's obviously my line work there. But his line work has got more variation in the line around the figures.
Yep.
Yeah, and he didn't do much of that on those. So, but that's what the editor told me, that my stuff was too quiet. So you're saying just the opposite, which is very funny.
No, you nailed it. To me, this is crystalline and pristine. Yeah. All right. So where would we like to go from here?
Well, that's toward the end of my career, because at this point, this is about when Marvel bought Malibu. I was still doing Deep Space Nine and other stuff at Malibu, but then the industry kind of collapsed, and Marvel bought up Malibu. So I started doing tryout pages for other stuff. And here's the day you just showed the page of Babylon 5, which was a science fiction show that was on about that time in syndication. And again, I'm trying to capture the likenesses and show that I can do the ships, and I can, and I actually had, and here's another page I did for X-Files about that same time. And I actually had, it looks like Dr. Octopus's arm is attacking them. And and Mulder shocks it and kills it. So, and I just created that story out of whole cloth. I just figured that would be something weird to do. And it has a little action in it, and it allowed me to show that I can draw people, that I can draw places, and I can draw a little action. That didn't end up taking, and neither one of those pages took me anywhere. Although I spoke to the editor of the Babylon 5 book at DC, and at that time, the editor was editing the creator's stories. J. Michael Straczynski, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And he was the producer, but he was also writing the book. And he's putting a lot of exposition and a lot of dialogue in each panel, and they were trying to cut it down. And he didn't like that. So he yanked the book. About the time these pages arrived, and they sent me back a letter saying, well, we were about to hire you, but the book is no longer with us, so we can't. So I actually met and talked to the editor was Kim Yale, John Ostrander's wife.
She was a good
late,
friend.
Great Kim Yale.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked to me at a show, and she says, I loved your stuff. And we were about to hire you to work on the book, but then Straczynski pulled the plug on it. And
That's too bad.
And she told me why. It's because they were trying to get him to cut down on the amount of dialogue he was putting in each panel. But so, as you can see in these panels I've done here, I left plenty of room for word bullets to fit in. So,
but even still, there's only so much room.
yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, that was and I guess he got angry and pulled the book. I don't know if I don't think anybody else did a comic book about it at the time. I think there's been one since somewhere along the way, but it's but since then, I also did another page for a book. There's some seminar stuff. You found another seminar page there.
Oh, was that seminar?
That's what you. Yeah, that was an
We're
action
gonna have
page
to wrap
of her.
up pretty soon, you guys.
Yeah, of her crashing a car. So yeah, she gets trapped into the car and almost gets killed in this scene. But yeah, that's from that as well. But yeah, I also did a tryout page for. Does anybody remember the TV show Highlander?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually was. They talked to me about actually drawing a comic book version of it, and that fell through. Yeah, there we go. That's yeah. There's another splash page of him getting electrified, like they do when they kill another immortal. But yeah,
Because there could only be one.
Yeah, because there can be only one. Yes. But
Yeah.
I created a battle on top of a building here to demonstrate what I could do with the characters. Show I could choreograph a fight and a whole bit. But it came to naught. Apparently, the producers of the movie and the TV show wanted name artists and writers on the book. They didn't want a nobody like me working on it. So.
All right. So when the industry kind of dried up, when the industry all kind of dried up on you, then what did you end up doing after that? You ended up going to self-publishing route?
Well, eventually, yeah. What I did at one point is I became a bus driver for 20 years.
Okay.
And I drew stuff on the side. I did I actually designed T-shirts for a while, and I did. Some of the guys from Malibu got me some work for video games. I did some likeness work for video games that were being made out in California, and I did a couple of advertising deals. There was the one that stands out the most to me is I don't know if anybody remembers the old Budweiser commercials where there's three bathing beauties laying on a. And we're going to get to that here in a minute. Maybe I should jump to that. But anyway, I did some of that, and then this is Daughter of Dracula. Way back in when I was still working I just started working at Malibu. Ron Fortier, who was the writer on Green Hornet at the time, contacted me and he wanted me to do a miniseries. Well, Green Hornet was being published by Now Comics at that point, and there was no way I was going to work for Tony Caputo again. So it was after I'd left.
So I did it.
Yeah.
Green Hornet.
Yeah. So a couple of he and I put together a couple of presentations. We tried to sell some stuff to DC and to Marvel, and none of it came anywhere. So we kind of drifted apart at that point. And then in 2004, I think it was, I was doing an online comic strip of a creation that I had come up with called the Spirit of Route 66, and that's a whole nother thing. We won't even go into that. But he had this script he'd written for a movie about how Dracula's daughter meets and falls madly in love with the Red Baron during the World War I era, and has a torrid love affair with him.
That makes total sense.
And he turned it into a graphic novel because he couldn't sell it as a movie, so he did it as a graphic novel. Well, he couldn't find an artist. He couldn't find anybody to do it. So he asked me if I would look at it, and I said, "Well, it's a great story, and I like it, but here's the deal: I can probably, doing my present work schedule, I can maybe give you 1 page a week, and it's 112 pages." And he goes, "I'll take it." And the whole time I thought telling him that, he would just say, "Okay, never mind." So I was stuck. And being the professional that I am, I promised to do a page a week. So for the next, 2 years, I gave him a page a week, penciled, inked, toned, and lettered. Every week I'd send him a page. And this is, at this point, things could be scanned in and sent digitally. So that's how this came together. And we couldn't find a publisher for it. So I eventually said, well, the heck with that. I've heard of this place called Kablam, where you can send them files and they'll print the book for you, print on demand. So I've been a client of Kablam since 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
And this was the first book we did for them. Ron Fortier and I did.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we got to kind of wrap up, I think.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to the present. I mean, I've done stuff since then, but with the Twilight Grim and I've done some other books, but that started off my self-publishing career, and then R.A. Jones and Roland Mann got together and we're trying to figure out what kind of books that they could do together. And R.A. Jones says, well, I'd kind of like to work with that Rob Davis guy again. We did such great stuff back on Scimitar. Can we do something with that? So they sent me 3 scripts and 3 different concepts. And this is the one I decided on because I'm going, vampires. I've done vampires before. I did Dracula's Daughter, and vampires seem to be making a comeback now. This is right after Twilight and some of the other stuff that come out. And I said, well, this looks like fun. I kind of like what this is all about. So we did the 4 issues of Twilight Grim.
All right. And this is a Silverline book, folks. Get your Silverline
all
book.
4 issues are out there. If you are going to go to the Kickstarter, and we'll mention that while we're here, there's a Kickstarter for Silverline right now. All 4 of the books for Twilight Grim are available as add-ons if you support the books that are in the Kickstarter right now.
That's right.
Which ones are they, Barb? I'm blanking. There's one
Cat and Mouse and
It's
Kalis.
Cat and Mouse number 4, which I inked. And Kalis is also available. And you can get any back issue of any Silverline book.
Yep, exactly.
On any of our Kickstarters.
Her book, Divinity, I can highly recommend that.
R.A. Jones helped script for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've gone an hour and almost a half. I'm surprised we got this far with all the pages and stuff I sent to you, because we're talking about, it's from the 1980s, late 1980s to 2023. So
yeah. Well, it was a wonderful journey. I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect it to go over.
I was stunned that you really liked the Pirates of Darkwater page.
I say apply to the Twilight Grim and it'll look just stunning. No, there's a heart and soul in there that you captured, and it just.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when I
it just had the pop.
When I got the gig, of course, I started watching the cartoon show, and I think I don't remember somebody sent me tapes of it or what, but I started watching it and I go, wow, this has got elements of there's some Star Wars elements in this. There's fantasy elements. It was a great story. So it was fun to do, and I would like to have done more, but of course they only did those 9 issues, and that was it.
Yep.
Yeah, and the cartoon only did. We never did find all the treasures of Rule in the cartoon series. There were like 22 or 24 treasures, and I think they only found like 20 of them. But that was the quest. That was the quest in Pirates of Darkwater.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a fun trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking me, and as I told you before we came on the air, I had to dig through my studio to find all those pages, and I said, "You made me work."
So
that section of my studio is now a lot neater.
Yeah. So now, what do you have on your drawing table now?
Well, I'm working on a book with Ron Fortier called Boston Bombers. Anybody who's been watching us for a while will see that, and I've got just did a full page splash of.
There we go. Oh,
That's
how do we show? How do we show that?
Gyrocopter.
Click on his profile.
Click on his profile.
Mm-hmm.
But it says it wants to remove him.
Oh no,
Solo
the little soul. Yep, that's it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
you got it.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you'll see that's Santa Claus in that auto gyro, and he's landing in the parking lot of an orphanage. With all the kids
go, folks.
You can see the nuns, and you see the, yeah. But this is that now digitally. I superimposed snowfall over this.
Yeah.
Which makes it look a lot better. And of course, put the lettering in digitally as well. I'm got another page that I penciled. The next page.
Oh wow, that looks great.
So there's Santa Claus climbing out of the auto gyro. So,
all right, folks.
That's what's on the board.
So everything that Rob has done has led up to those 2 pages that are sitting on his table right now. So keep your eyes peeled for that when that comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. I'm getting about a page, maybe 2 a week if I'm lucky, because I'm lettering and inking it myself. So, and it's not for Silverline; it's a self-published deal. So, it's coming along. We do have Barb and I have a project we're going to work on together once this goes a little further down the line, which we will talk about eventually. We can't talk about it yet, but Barb will bring her superior inks to my pencils, and hopefully we'll do a kick-ass book for y'all.
Is that the one that's related to the daughter of D?
Possible. It's possible.
Sorry.
I don't know. Could be. Might not be. Could be anything. Because that's the thing. I've done everything. I didn't have pages from a book I did with R.A. Jones for Malibu back in the day, or Eternity, a book about Merlin. So I've done all kinds of characters from back in ancient history all the way into the future, from Merlin to Captain Kirk. So and all kinds of stuff in between. It's been, but the only thing I haven't done. Yeah, and the only thing I haven't done is a cowboy as a Western yet. I want to do a Western sometime.
All right. So here's my challenge to you for then, Rob. You do the Western, but you do it in the style of the Pirates of Darkwater.
Okay. Really crisp art, huh? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe look at some Alex Toth for some influence.
Oh, definitely. I actually bought a back issue of his work on hate getting old. Your brain doesn't work quite right. Black Canary, that was it. Black Canary. He did a 2-issue backup story on Black Canary, and it's just incredible. Yeah, I'd love to channel him into my work. My goodness, what a consummate artist he was. All right,
just like you.
I think we need to wrap up.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right, folks.
Barb's right. We've already
this was a fantastic run. This was a fantastic run through memory lane, and thank you so much for walking us through your stuff there and giving us a little bit of a history lesson.
And as we always say,
I love talking about myself.
And as we always say, make mine Silverline.
My name is Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios, and make mine Silverline.